Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I will be telling you all about the books that I read in the first half of September. I didn't get anything read for Space Opera September yet, but I was able to kind of clean up my currently reading pile a little bit. The first book that I finished in September, I finished in the first couple of days of September, and that is Sanctuary by Paula Mendoza and Abby Sher. This follows the story of a girl who is an undocumented immigrant in a near future world. I think it's like 2030 something. I don't know. So it basically follows her and her little brother as they are trying to find some place safe and figure out what they're doing to stay safe in a country where everyone is like on high alert trying to get them deported almost. So essentially, this really does take place in a very near future world, so all of the dystopian elements that make it really believable as something that could happen soon, because they do have elements of what's already going on today, like where there's already a wall being built, there are already things being implemented to track immigrants and all of that other stuff. So essentially in this book, the main character and her little brother have these chips that her whole family had to get, that every U.S. citizen is supposed to have in this book, where so her brother's chip is real, because he was born in the US and he's a lot younger than her. He's like 7. But she and her parents had to get counterfeit ones installed, and then her father isn't even able to because they don't have the money, whereas if it's a real one by the US government, it's free, all of that. So they have to jump through a lot of hoops to make it look like they're not there illegally. But then more and more things start happening that are cracking down on undocumented immigrants, and so they have to leave. And it really never lets you forget either that they can't just go back to Colombia or anything like that, where she came from when she was really little, anything like that, because that's actually more dangerous. And I think what a lot of people who don't really read about a lot of undocumented immigrant stories or anything like that don't seem to understand is that people can't just go back to the country that they came from at all. Usually they're here because of an actual reason. They're not here just because it's nice here. And I think the book really did a good job of not letting you forget that, that no matter what kind of dangers they're facing, it's still preferable to going back to Colombia. And there's a survivalistic aspect of this story because they really just don't know what they're doing. They have to figure out what to do. And she's 15 and she's in charge of her little brother. Basically, she has to make him kind of feel like it's not super abnormal what they're doing. And that she has to not let him really see how much danger they're actually in and what the stakes actually are, because he's 7 and he won't understand all of that. And so they have to go through a lot of hoops. And then even by the end of the story, it gives you the feeling that just because they're safe by the end doesn't mean everything's okay now. Everything's still very much not okay. They might not be in any immediate danger, but it's still there's still problems going on and that involve them and all of that. And so it's a really incredible read. It really, a lot of the stuff that happens to them really does happen to people. And the chips that are implanted in all these people, it's kind of like a manifestation of the fear that undocumented immigrants already have, because it's very much what undocumented immigrants already go through without a weird microchip. So it's a really important book and a quick read, and I highly recommend it. Then I read Crown of Crowns by Clara Loveman. This is a book that I already have a full review up for. This was sent to me by Literally PR for review, and this book was pretty enjoyable. It wasn't bad. It had good world building. It was interesting in a lot of ways, very unique and very unpredictable, and it also had the main character also has 2 love interests, and it's not a love triangle, and you really don't know who she's going to end up with, or if she's going to end up with both in some weird way. But it's not a poly thing either, which is kind of weird that it's not a love triangle, but it really isn't. But I did have a few issues with this book, and mainly it comes down to the fact that there's very little character depth. So I felt like with even with like both of her love interests, because it's a pretty big part of the story, like both of the people that she's with, and her romances with them are actually a very big part of the story. And I felt like no character depth added to kind of no chemistry. There's a bird outside my window, so I keep looking over there. But anyway, so her entire subplot with one of them, like it's not written very well. It's literally just about how hot she thinks he is, and it's not that's not even described that well. It's kind of just, oh, she wanted to feel his muscles, and that's like, it just keeps saying that, like it's like, okay, sure, lady, like whatever. But essentially, yeah, so this book isn't bad, certainly not, but I just felt like there are a lot of things that could have been improved about it. And also another weird thing about it too is the pacing was super, super weird. So in the beginning of the story, so basically the first couple chapters of this book are the worst part. That's the weakest part. So if you do want to read this book, don't judge it by the first couple of chapters, because the rest of the book is a lot better. But essentially in the first 50 pages, we have a horrible death, and then suddenly it's a year later, and then another horrible death, and then suddenly it's like 2 years later. And so it's a lot of weird jumping around right at the beginning of the story, and that just really threw me for a loop. I was kind of like, can this story maybe like stay on the same track for like a little bit longer? I don't know. But anyway, I did enjoy this book. I read it really quickly, but I felt like I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought that I would. Next, I read Color Me In by Natasha Diaz. This is about a girl who is biracial, and she's really white passing. So her dad is Jewish and her mom is black, and she really does not look black. That much at all, to the point where like people think her mom is her nanny when she's a little kid and all this other stuff. So her parents split up, and she has to go and live with some cousins, and she realizes just how white passing she actually is, and how even though she is half black, the fact that she has light skin means that she's someone who needs to make room for the people more marginalized than her and make sure that their voices are heard. And she's not used to being the one white person there, the one like white passing person there, because at her school she's the only black person, and she doesn't even like look black, but to the kids there she really does. It's really interesting. It makes a lot of really good points. And at the beginning of this book, I was kind of afraid that there wouldn't be that much plot, but there actually really is. There's all kinds of like throwing up on a mean racist person and all this like way like wild stuff that happens in it that really just makes you kind of go, what is going on here? And also what's interesting too is the plot about her parents having split up, because she does read her mom's old diary in this, and she really gets the sense of kind of what her parents' relationship actually was like when they first met, and how even reading that you can see what was already at that time leading up to their separating. And so I thought that was really interesting too. Like you can kind of see what the dynamic of a relationship already is. And like see that obviously these people are going to split up. Just because they have a good relationship then like doesn't mean, so you can kind of see the same stuff is at play with their dynamic as it is as they're separating. So I thought that was a really interesting part of the story as well. But anyway, I definitely think that if you like contemporaries, I would definitely recommend giving this a read. I think that if you're not someone who reads very many contemporaries, I would skip this one, just because, unless you're interested in the subject matter, just because it does have a lot less real like dynamic plot going on. A lot more of it is kind of a slow making good points type of thing. But anyway, I definitely really liked it, and I highly recommend it. And finally, When the Sky Goes Dark by Oliver C. Seneca. This was sent to me by the author for review, and this is basically about a dude who is a huge douchebag. He's basically the kind of main character that Chuck Palahniuk typically uses. Like, he's such a douche in a way that's kind of a product of like how he was brought up and how his parents raised him, sort of. So he's like a jerk, and at the beginning of the book you really don't like him, and he really stays pretty unlikable throughout the whole thing. But this book basically follows him as he finds out that people are suddenly becoming violent and killing each other, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, trying to survive, trying to get to his parents' house from his college, to see if they're even still alive, because they won't pick up their phones. And yeah, so it's definitely a very survivalistic book, and I'm not someone who's been like reaching for pandemic related books during the pandemic, but somehow reading about a really extreme sort of pandemic going down that's so much worse than what's currently happening in the world actually kind of helped a little bit. But anyway, this is also a really quick read. I read most of this book in one sitting. Anyway, I definitely recommend this book if that sounds interesting to you. And I definitely think if you're looking for a really quick read, this would definitely be a really, really good book. So anyway, those are the books that I read in the first half of September. Let me know if you've read any of these, have any thoughts on them. Let me know what your favorite book that you've read so far this month is, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!